So 2024 is shaping up to be the craziest election of my lifetime. We have a prediction coming up right now. So as we can see the map how it is, we've got a pretty much 99% chance that this will be the floor. This is like basically guaranteed. If I get any of these states wrong, you can be sure to shoot me in the face. But basically we've got 43 for the Democrats, 47 for the Republicans. Now, let's get to the states by chances of going red. So basically, we've got the state of Texas. Now, Ted Cruz will underperform Trump, but because Trump is going to win it by a projected net 10%, then, unless he really screws the pooch, he ought to really be elected Republican senator. He doesn't have a stiff competition. I don't even know who's running against him. It's nobody that you need to care about. And so, honestly, he should coast off the coattails of Trump just fine. So Lion Ted's going to stay in the Senate another 6 years, despite lying and saying that he was only going to serve 2 terms. But you know how these politicians are nowadays. The next state I wanted to talk about was going to be Ohio. Ohio, despite the best efforts of people like Destiny and other people that are canvassing for Democrats in the state of Ohio, they're going to have to lose, okay? Donald Trump is going to win by upwards of 10%. So again, the same thing applies. Who is going to be that 12% of people that are going to vote for Trump but vote for Sherrod Brown, who is to the left of Biden on economics, okay? Somebody who is more liberal than Joe Biden. Make that make sense, folks. Not going to happen, okay? Ohio will go Republican. And what's so beautiful about this is that you don't really need to worry about the candidate quality in states like Texas or Ohio because Trump's going to win them by enough for it to not make a difference. The same applies to the state of Florida. Florida is a state that would have been close and was close during the era of Charlie Crist, George Bush, this time, the yesteryear. When I was in preschool, it was a close time. But because of Marco Rubio, being Cuban, being a moderate Republican, you really have all shapes and sizes voting for him en masse. There really is no competition to speak of in Florida. The Democrats, if they're smart, would just defund the whole state because they're losing it guaranteed. I can bet one of my kidneys on it, but not both. I want to live. Now, going on to the next state, we have West Virginia. West Virginia is a little more difficult than you'd expect because we recently had Joe Manchin kind of just give up on his career and acknowledge the inevitable, which is that it's going red in 2024, regardless of what all 70-year-old good old boy conservative Democrat tries to do about it. And so he, instead of losing his 2024 bid, said, you know what, let's get some generic Democrat to run up there and get slaughtered. And so that's exactly what's going to happen. Again, Joe Manchin in 2018 won in a blue midterm wave for the Democrats against an awful Republican who I think might have been a crack addict in the past. So, I mean, it's a mess. It's a little bit scrupulous to say, but basically I can posit and conjecture right off the bat that it will go Republican no matter who's running. Again, it could be a guy with a pulse and not much more than that. He would win the state of West Virginia. The minors are going to be happy. As you can see, the Senate has already gone Republican, but we still have 6 more states to fill out. And these are really essential because these are going to be closer than anybody could imagine. The next state I wanted to talk about is going to be Pennsylvania. Now, in the infinite wisdom of Mitch McConnell, he elects a guy who is basically not a non-essential human being in the state of Pennsylvania. If you're running somebody in Pennsylvania, it would be like the guy, Josh something or whatever, this like Navy SEAL, middle-aged white guy. But no, you couldn't get a guy in a flannel. You had to get some corporate guy like McCormick. McCormick is a guy who doesn't resonate with the voters, doesn't resonate with the Trump voters in 2016 that flipped the state Republican. He doesn't resonate with the people that voted Fetterman and voted Trump, the people that you would need to win the state. So even if Trump wins Pennsylvania by 2-3%, McCormick probably won't. And his opponent is really tough. Bob Casey slaughtered the career of Rick Santorum, who's a super promising politician who ran for president in 2012. Rick Santorum lost in a landslide like by 20% in Pennsylvania in 2006. And ever since then, for 18 years straight, Bob Casey Jr. has been senator. He's a pro-life Democrat, or at least that's what he got elected on. So he's a conservative Democrat in a state that's already purple, in a state where the competition is Bob McCormick, who sucks a bag of, So at that point, you really have no hope for the state of Pennsylvania. So honestly, I would say that it's going to go blue by like 5, and that's depressing, but it'll be closer than other years. It's just that realistically speaking, there's no way that you can expect it to go red when we have a funding disadvantage. We have a candidate that sucked so bad he lost to, I believe, Mehmet Oz, who lost to Shapiro or something like that. So it's not looking good. Fetterman is the type of person that you would want to, if you had to practice who you'd want to be, it would be a blue collar Democrat. But McCormick is the antithesis to that, and not in a good way. And Trump being a billionaire has more appeal to Pennsylvania voters than does a guy who's probably not as rich in McCormick. And so, I mean, it just goes to show how inadequate of a politician he is that he couldn't even beat Mehmet Oz in a primary election, whereas he already lost to Shapiro. And moreover, beyond that, again, Fetterman versus Mastriano. Mastriano also lost, and that just doesn't prove well for Republicans in the state of Pennsylvania. So, unless you're Trump, you're not having a lot of hope as a Republican right off the bat. We have my state of birth, Michigan, up next for this analysis. We have the state of Michigan going blue, actually, believe it or not, because we have a problem. The Republican Party has a token in James Craig, who is like a police chief or something. But outside of like what's on paper, he seems to be an inadequate candidate. You look that up for 5 minutes, you'll see what I'm talking about. So, I mean, the guy isn't really poised to win. Debbie Stabenow has had no problem in any election she's on for like 10 years at least. She's had an easy time getting reelected. You can look at 2018, look at the facts. The point is that, having a token Republican didn't work for the guy that we ran last. It didn't work for anybody recently, Herschel Walker. So I just don't see that being a good thing for Republicans. Here's another factoid, folks. If you're the police commissioner for Detroit, that's not actually a good look. Like, oh, I had a really tough job. Yeah, and you sucked, I guess, right? Detroit's awful. Okay, again, look at the polling. The polling's not advantageous for the Republicans. They did replace their horrible leadership in Michigan, but they do it at the 12th hour of the election. Is that really going to be with enough time for us to like fix the state apparatus? The answer is probably not. So we don't really have hope for the state of Michigan electorally, if not for the coattails of Trump. But like I said already, Stabenow's already an established, respected politician in the state of Michigan. So I just don't see how Craig is going to win at this point. So it's not looking good. And like I said, if anything goes Republican in Michigan, it's because of Trump. But it's not like Trump is going to win Michigan by like 7 or something and lift up Craig. It's not going to work that way, unfortunately. Now, Wisconsin is somewhat similar to Pennsylvania. What do I mean? Well, I think Trump's going to win Pennsylvania, but I think that not by enough to carry the other substandard politicians that are trying to ride his coattails to victory for. And so, you can have some candidates run against Tammy Baldwin. I think it's Ed Hove or whatever. Look, he just doesn't have name recognition outside the state. I do not see the fundraising for his race, and Tammy Baldwin has outperformed the Democrat federally for the past 10 years. So from that standpoint alone, you can really look at the last 12 years of electoral history for Tammy and just say that if Trump wins by 2, she's probably going to outperform Biden by like 3 to 4, and she'll probably squeak out a victory with the fundraising advantage and having more respect as a politician and name recognition in the state of Wisconsin over Ed, the opponent. So I'll give that tilt blue, unfortunately, for the Republican Party. Now we have the next state of Montana. Montana is a little bit complicated for everybody to understand, okay? If you look on Twitter or X.com as we know it now, it's really a crapshoot. We're looking at a state to which where there is a consortium of people on the internet that think they know everything about Montana, even though not even 1% of them had stepped foot in there, much less me too. And so we've got people saying that, oh, well, Matt Rosendale's an unpopular candidate, or that John Tester won in 2018. Not knowing the fact and not acknowledging at least that Donald Trump was not on the ballot. That's a big difference, okay? John Fetterman and Doug Mastriano is the big analogy that people like to use on Twitter, the liberals do. Well, Doug Mastriano underperformed Trump in Pennsylvania in 2022 by 15.5%, okay? If you take 15.5% of Trump's margin in 2020, the Republican still wins, believe it or not. So unless Rosendale touches a kid or kills his wife or I don't know what, he's going to win, okay? This is just ridiculous. John Tester has no freaking shot. And to debate whether or not what candidate is running as if it's even relevant at all to the outcome is ridiculous, okay? You don't have to follow the primary. The Republican's going to win Montana. If they don't, I can say goodbye to one of my feet. Okay, I don't need both of them anyway. The next state I wanted to talk about is Nevada. Nevada, I think, is going blue. Why is it going blue? Well, realistically speaking, you have Sam Brown, who is a burn victim or something like that, a Purple Heart recipient veteran. And while on paper that seems really impressive, just phenotypically, it's a little bit audacious. It's a little bit scary. So, I mean, that's just a black pill reality, though. Like, okay, on one hand, a voter can say, and a suburban mom can say, what a brave guy. You know, he really took one for the team being America. But at the end of the day, if he looks like Freddy Krueger and doesn't even have the claws to fight back Jackie Rosen, what makes you think he's going to win the state of Nevada? Let's just keep it a buck, okay? And what's more is, again, maybe it could work. Maybe he's such a badass that it would actually rub in the right way, but maybe it won't, and that's what I'm leaning towards. Plus, Jackie Rosen already won in 2018, so you kind of just got to go with trends sometimes. And again, the polling had him down 5% with a ton of undecideds last time I checked in the prediction. And so there really is no evidence to prove that the Republicans will win, even if Trump wins the state. And so for that matter, it's hard to say either way, but I'll just say blue for now. The last state I wanted to talk about was Arizona. Now, Arizona, I think, is going red. If you look at the polls now, they're pretty neck and neck, for one. But two, now that Carrie Lake can not be as distracted with Kirsten Sinema as an opponent, she's going to go 100% anti-Gallego. That's only going to help the narrative. And what's more is that Carrie Lake has more consolidated support over the state party, which I know intimately. So in Arizona, she's going to have more leverage for fundraising and endorsements and people not trying to cockblock her basically from winning. If you take that into account, plus the fact that she narrowly lost in 22 for governor, then you take that all into account and she will run in line with Trump. If Trump wins, she wins. If she loses, Trump loses, more likely than not. So if Trump wins by like 3, I can see her winning by 2. And that's enough to win. So the Republicans ought to win 53 seats versus 47 for the Democrats. The states that are going to be close either way are probably going to be Nevada could be a flip, Wisconsin could be a flip, and Michigan are going to be a flip. But we'll see how that plays out. I'll see y'all in the next video. Adios.